Hey, sixth graders, happy Tuesday. Hope you're doing fabulous. Let's talk more about Athens and its democracy. We introduced democracy in the former government's lesson last go round. So let's dig into the Athenian democracy because it's very influential. Um, Athenian values are really a foundation of why they chose this form of government. The people of Athens really valued wisdom, creativity, and debate. You look at their patron goddess, Athena, whose temple, the Parthenon, is seen here on the Acropolis, the raised hill overlooking Athens. Um, Athena, as the goddess of wisdom, is kind of seen as their role model, that wisdom above all. Um, and the people of Athens had a pride that they felt that the people were smart enough and intelligent enough and capable enough as citizens of Athens that they could rule themselves better than any one king could. And they also had core beliefs that any citizen should have certain rights and responsibilities. Note I keep saying the word citizen, not all people, all citizens, because their definition of who can be a citizen is definitely limited. We'll get to that in a bit. So the roots of the Athenian democracy go back to 510 BCE, when the Athenians overthrew a tyrant and then pushed out the aristocratic class, which had for time periods ruled over Athens for a good chunk of its early history. And then by 508 BC, 2 years later, they established a democratic form of government. Remember, democratic meaning that the people rule over themselves. And this is the first of this form of government in world history, where you have a group of citizens who govern together, not one central authority figure or one central group of power figures like the aristocracy or an oligarchy. In the Athenian democracy, all citizens had a say in how they were governed. Again, citizenship is limited, but all citizens had an opportunity to have a say, and all citizens had certain protections of certain rights. And we see as Athenian history goes on after the Persian War, they steadily increase who can participate in this government and the rights that are protected. Let's talk about a few of those rights. If you were an Athenian, you couldn't be enslaved due to debt, which was a common occurrence. If you owed me money and couldn't pay me, guess what? Now you're my slave. If you were a citizen in Athens, you weren't allowed to do that. They had a court system for civil claims. If somebody damaged your property, that you could bring them to court. They believed in a trial by jury, and that a jury of citizens would decide whether or not the person was guilty or innocent. The right to appeal decisions made by government officials and made by a court. So you can ask somebody else to review it to make sure that there wasn't corruption there. Anyone who was a citizen was allowed to hold office. Office wasn't, powers in the government weren't just open to the aristocracy or the wealthy or the elites. Nope. Anybody who was a citizen could run for office and get chosen. Also, these government officials who work for the government, carrying on the bureaucracy, were paid. So they could work for the government as their main job instead of like working and doing government work as a side gig voluntarily. They could concentrate on all their efforts on serving the people. They were allowed to vote and speak at the Athenian Assembly, which made the laws. Let's take a look at that. The Athenian democracy had two main bodies. One is the council, and the council is a group of 500 citizens who were chosen randomly each year. That you would pick from a rock. If you picked the black rock, you got chosen. If you got a white rock, you didn't, or vice versa. And the council has the power to propose laws, say this is what laws we would like to have, but they don't have the power to make the laws. The assembly, which is made up of 6,000 citizens who are there to vote that day, and It's 6,000 who are the first to show up, essentially. And it changes, so you have the assembly changing from day to day, week to week, based off of who's showing up. And they have the power to vote on the laws of all citizens. They felt such a high number made it that it would be fair enough that everyone agreed on it. Because remember that in a democracy, it's a majority rule. So it's not a majority of 10 people, it's a majority of 6,000 people. They also believe that citizens had certain responsibilities. If you have trial by jury, you have to have people, citizens have to serve in juries. You had to participate in voting and in debate in the assembly. And lastly, they mandated military service for all citizens. But not all people who lived in Athens were considered citizens. If you're under 18, you didn't have any citizenship. B, if you were a woman, 50% of the population right there, any woman was not considered a citizen. Was not considered a voting citizen. You could be considered technically a citizen if you married an Athenian man who was a citizen to make sure that your sons could be born citizens. But other than that, like your daughters are not born citizens. The medics, who are foreign residents who live in Athens, people who moved to Athens from other city-states or from outside of Greece, and they can work as artisans, they can work as craftsmen, merchants, but they're not allowed to buy land, and they don't have a say in the government, but they do get paid for their work, and they're free to come and go where they want. So they have a little bit more freedom than the people who are at the bottom at the Athenian social hierarchy, who are the slaves, who had no rights, no freedom. And they mostly worked in agriculture and farming. In all, the Athenian democracy consisted of about 20% of the total population of Athens. So, with that, I'd like you to describe 2 rights that Athenian citizens had, and I'd like you to tell me what Athenians were not considered as citizens. And lastly, my higher order question for you is, should Athens be considered the world's first democracy if many of its people were left out of it? I look forward to reading your answer. Thanks a lot.